This morning, we're one-on-one with Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. He speaks out on plans to replace Rikers with local jails, his approach to dealing with the opioid crisis, and he reveals how his diet reversed type 2 diabetes. Plus, an update on the crisis in public housing. Monica Morales and tenant leaders join us as a federal official suggests criminal charges are forthcoming against those responsible for failures.
Now from 42nd and 2nd, this is New York's very own Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
Good morning. With a population of over 2.5 million residents, Brooklyn is larger than many small cities. At the helm of the borough is a man who was a former police detective and a member of the state Senate, and now a potential candidate for mayor. Pleased to welcome back to Pix 11 News Close-Up Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Good to have you with us. A lot of issues to cover. Let's begin with a decision made by a city council committee this week advancing the closure of Rikers Island and planning to build smaller jails in each of 4 boroughs, including Brooklyn. How do you weigh in on that?
We put in place a proposal also to decrease the size of the buildings that were proposed for Brooklyn. But we want to go further, because if you downsize or close a jail, which we're doing with Rikers to make sure that it will never become a jail again, but we still have the underlying problems that are allowing people to go into the criminal justice system in the first place. Part of my recommendations, we need to look at how do we decrease the volume. It's not about just closing the buildings. Let's close the pipelines that actually feed the correctional facilities in our city.
But residents are really objecting to having a jail in their own backyard.
Not all, which is amazing. In the Brooklyn Heights, the Cobble Hill, the parts of Brooklyn, Dumbo, their approach is, we understand that downtown is a place where we have correctional facilities. We just don't want it to overwhelm our downtown area. And that was the proposal that came out after hearing from people. It was clear that they understood the jail would be there, but let's have it at a lower height and not turn it into a tower.
Now, there's a deadline coming up, I think, this Thursday on whether to proceed with the building. And this would all happen, not immediately, got to be done by 2026.
Yes, and that's fast, believe it or not. When you look at the life of a ULURP process, when you look at the life of how do we get buildings done on governmental land and governmental property. So we're moving in a very expeditious fashion, and people should be excited about the fact we're going to close Rikers, which is really named after a person that had a draconian history, but we're going to move to have smaller jails and provide what I am hoping better services.
Let's move on to the problem in the city with overall crime is down, but gun violence is spiking, and Brooklyn is seeing a high number of gun violence, gun crimes. Why? Why is it so high right now?
Well, particularly in Brooklyn North, and where the problems are taking place is really with gang violence. And it is unfortunate that when you see the conversation, Marv, about decreasing crime, we don't look at what's happening with the real crime and gun issues in America. We talk about AK-47s and assault rifles. That is not our crisis. Our crisis lies in handguns, 9mm, 38. Those are the guns that are creating the crisis in America. But because they're in the urban cities and the victims are poor people of color, we tend to be more dismissive of that, and we have a higher level of tolerance. Once they spilled over into the suburban counties, and you see some of these shootings, the mass shootings, you are now seeing a different energy. We need to have handguns as the conversation.
Now, more of the incidents have been occurring in Brooklyn and Brooklyn North, and yes, some people are alleging that this is because Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez is soft on first-time gun offenders.
No, I don't think. I think Eric Gonzalez is an amazing district attorney. He's using all the tools in his toolbox to deal with crime and not have repeated offenders. Now, we differ on first-time gun offenders. We have a different philosophy on that. I believe that anytime you carry a gun, you need to serve time in jail for doing so. You must send the right message, but I believe his overall plan of attacking violence is something that is commendable, and I really encourage him to continue to do so.
Attacking violence. How do you attack the opioid crisis, particularly in your borough?
We've been success. When you look at the city agencies and their reports, they're talking about what we have done in Brooklyn. We have a substantial decrease in overdose uses. 1,400 people have gone through the training that I put in place through my office, and they are now learning how to prevent opioid. But you also must have an educational program on the level in our schools where we really move to the area of prevention. And we need to really look at those doctors and those industries that were overprescribing opioid and how they unfairly targeted different areas in different parts of the city and the country. And Brooklyn really received the brunt of that, and they need to pay for what they did in those times.
You also have a unique program, an interactive program, to help parents detect whether their children are using these drugs and if they're hiding them in their rooms.
Yes, amazing. There's a van made up of former law enforcement officers where parents can actually walk through and watch how drugs are hidden in the rooms of their children, how to look for early signs and early uses. The best combat to deal with opioid and drug abuse and gun violence is to really empower families in their households to detect it. Early detection is the key.
I have to ask you this. Did I read correctly that you once said that there are racial stereotypes dealing with drugs, that blacks are not as much involved with the drug epidemic as whites are because doctors are reluctant to prescribe them?
No, not at all. What you find is that many of these areas have been overprescription. I think it's just the opposite, that there's an overprescription. It's unfortunate that in many of our healthcare facilities, we don't allow early testing. That's an entirely different conversation, but when it comes down to drugs, there's clearly an over prescription of drugs in poorer communities.
Okay, I want to take a break. I want to talk about the problem with those traffic deaths of bicyclists in the city, and I know you have some solution to it in Brooklyn.
Yes.
We'll be right back with Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Stay with us.
You're watching New York's very own Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
I began to overcome the stigma of seeking help, going beyond the idea that it makes you less of a person. And I know what some of you may think, but getting help won't go in your file, and there are organizations you can trust.
There are organizations you can trust, and that was Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, who once had difficulty with depression and turned to transcendental meditation. I want to hear about that, but you are utilizing that as one of the ways to deal with police officers who are troubled and full of stress and anxiety, and we've had so many suicides of police officers in New York this year.
Yes, a high number, and I sat down and spoke with a family member of her brother who committed suicide, and she saw the signs, and she tried to tell the department of the problem. I don't think people realize the term vicarious trauma, and it's not only police officers, it's civil servant employees. When you are continuously receiving the trauma of other people, you begin to live through that trauma. And at the conclusion of my law enforcement career, I felt that. I felt the PTSD impact of it. It is the constant feeling of being involved with the traumatic experiences of others. And we need to really start looking at the social and emotional toll on civil servants, particularly police officers, teachers, of those who are in HRA and ACS. They are living through the trauma of others. And transcendental meditation and other types of meditation, they are ways of assisting you in dealing with the stress, and it's part of self-care.
Have you spoken to the police commissioner about this?
No, but I have spoken to several of the members in the police department. I had a great meeting with the chief of the transit police. We're looking to partner with a foundation that will give police officers life coaches. I have a life coach. Police officers are not only dealing with the trauma of their career, but they're dealing with family issues. They're dealing with the issues around mortgage and children. And when you look at the salaries that we pay our police officers, 32% less than the police officers in the an hour in the communities outside of New York City, it's a major impact on the lifestyle, and it is impacting on the stress in their lives.
Now, you're also utilizing this. You have a pilot project in schools utilizing meditation. How is that working?
I'm very excited about it. We sent away 30 plus teachers to go and learn mindfulness and yoga so they can come back. It's almost like train the trainers. When you look at a child, let's take Brownsville for issue. We had 11 people shot in Brownsville over Old Timers Day. Those children had to go to school the next day or sit in a classroom in weeks after. What are we doing to help mend people who experience trauma? We're not really acknowledging the power of meditation and the power of social care to allow people to deal with the pressures that they're dealing with, particularly in the inner city.
Well, it sounds like a very positive project.
It is. We are excited about it. We want to expand it eventually throughout the entire borough. All of our children should start their day with some form of relaxation before they start their school day.
Now, I know you've been outspoken about this. There have been so many tragic deaths in New York. I think the figure I saw you had was 23 cyclist deaths this year.
Yes.
And a number of them been in Brooklyn. Now, you've already taken action to change and try to make those streets in your borough safer. What are you doing about it?
And it goes further. My career around traffic safety and traffic crashes with fatalities go back to my days as a police officer. I was the traffic stat person, and I continued when I became in the state senate. I was part of the initiative to decrease the miles of hour that we travel in the city, which was important, and it's continued now. I take the subway. I ride my bike to and from my place of employment and on weekends, and I know that many people are petrified about riding in the streets every time they hear traffic death. So we are partnering with an organization like Transportation Alternative, Families for Safe Street, and we want to continue to show how do we make our cities and our city streets safer by having protected bike lanes, by making misconnections of connecting bike lanes, and allowing people to utilize biking. Biking is good for the environment, it's good for health, and it's good to deal with congestion.
So you favor more bike lanes and designating special areas for the bicyclists?
So, in designated areas, we have to share the streets, and it should be done with input from the local community, as well as it should be done with input for those who are advocating for this change.
After this, shifting gears, at this point, is it safe to say that you're running for mayor next year?
We're still at the process of examination. Everyone knows that this has always been my desire to be the chief executive of this city. I believe we did an amazing job as a police officer, how we took a dysfunctional aspect of making our city safe and we made it functional. I think we need to do that for every agency. We have to deal with the reality we're not functioning as a 21st century city.
I have to ask this question because there has been a charge out there about an ethics violation. Can you respond to that? Something to dealing with receiving funds for companies that are doing business with the city?
It's so important not to live within the headlines. There has never been any ethics violations. I am a strong believer that corporations should give back to the inner city and businesses need to do that. Some people don't believe that. I do. We've always followed the rules. We have done an amazing job of putting over $2 million back into nonprofits. We're a nonprofit that don't pay any employee for doing the job, doesn't pay any salary. 100% of the money we go to corporations, we put it back into organization, and I am so proud of that, and I'm unapologetic by going to big businesses and say you do business in the city, you must give back to the city.
Can't let you go without asking you this question. It's a personal question.
Yes.
Because you have reversed type 2 diabetes by changing your diet. I know there are a lot of folks out there who would like to know, how'd you do it?
It's food. I was amazed when the doctors told me I was going to lose my sight in a year and I was going to lose some fingers and toes eventually. And all I had to do was to just change my diet. We were successful in doing so. Bellevue Hospital has adopted the concept of my program, and they have a lifestyle change, health initiative that's taking place. I believe the reports are going to show that we can actually reverse not only diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure. We could do some great things around health in this city, and it's going to cascade throughout the entire country.
Healthy advice. Brooklyn Borough President Carmen.
Great seeing you, Marv.
Always good to see you. And I'm sure
we dressed
Yeah.
alike all the time. You like my
Two
twin
guys in-
brother.
Two guys in blue. We'll have you back here soon. Okay, thank you. Stay with us. We'll be back. We're talking about the crisis in public housing.
You're watching New York's very own Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
Forecasters are projecting an extremely cold winter ahead, and that begs the question for the 400,000 residents of the city's public housing. Will they have adequate heat and hot water before the first cold blast sets in? Just another of the troubling questions for those living in the beleaguered NYCHA developments. This morning, we get an update of the situation from my colleague Monica Morales, whose Monica Makes It Happen reports have helped thousands of tenants get results. We're also joined by Carmen Quinones. She's the tenant president at Douglas Houses, and Ronald Topping, tenant president at Adam Houses. Thanks for coming in. So the question is, October 1st began the heating season. Are NYCHA houses ready for winter?
They're not ready.
No,
Not at all.
Ron, what about
No, they're not prepared. They still have a lot of work to do. Long way to go.
you? Now, the city, the mayor, promised that these heating problems would be resolved to have heat and hot water. Remember what you guys went through 2 years ago?
Yes.
In the bitter winter, you had no heat and hot water. Is that going to be the same situation this year?
It might be even worse because we're expecting a really brutal winter. So it might be a lot worse. And as far as the mayor, you know, I don't take anything he says seriously anymore. I don't trust him. So, no, I don't think this is going to happen. And he doesn't keep his word. So.
Now, since our last update here, we got the federal monitor. He's been in place for the whole year. We have a new CEO, Gregory Russ. Have there been any improvements in the deplorable conditions that we've been hearing about?
The only thing that's happening is scaffolding is going up everywhere. More scaffolding, you know. And so people are definitely getting paid, except the residents are not getting repairs.
Yeah, I think now is go time, Marvin. We have a new CEO. I just talked to him yesterday of NYCHA. 60 days it's been, and he's promised 100 days we'd see a lot of action and a lot of changes. Now, when I talk to people every single day in public housing, they're not seeing it. So when is it going to happen is the question, and where is the money? Those are the two biggies. And now we are approaching winter, and you know, as a station, we have committed to bringing the heat and hot water to the 400,000 residents of public housing. We're going to continue that mission, and I think the city needs to step up. And I know they say they're doing the best that they can, but we don't see the plan. They say they have a plan in place, that the federal monitor is reviewing it now, so we just need to see it.
Until they change the players, it's not going to happen, Marvin.
Now, last time you were on the program, you said you were going to protest the new CEO, Gregory Russ, coming in from Minnesota. You said he wasn't
did
the
that.
proper.
We definitely went
you
to
met with
City
him?
Hall. No, I have not met with him. I think he needs to reach out to me. I shouldn't have to reach out to him. I'm a president. He needs to reach out to me. He got here. I've been here.
Maybe that's him calling. We don't know.
That must be the mayor calling. All right.
Yeah.
Fat chance of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
He's been making appearances and talking, but it's more talk than action and work. There's not been much action. There's been decisions making. We'll start with the federal monitor. Federal monitor has been here. He's called us into the Eagle Soul Houses, one of the first meetings that he had, and he had 22 people of his staffers all introduce themselves, talk for 3 minutes, and then allowed little tenant leaders to have time to have a conversation or interact with the conversation. Have a sign a list to get inside there and not allow us to talk and speak and so forth. All we are saying is that we need to be heard, and we need to be heard clearly. They need to listen. I don't need to know your titles. I don't need to know your job. I don't need to know how much you get paid. I need you to listen to what we're saying so you can help us.
Now, as of a month ago, NYCHA said that there were some 60,000 outstanding work orders that were still there, but it's the definition of what they mean by work orders.
Yeah.
They may fix a leak, but not the source of it.
Oh my gosh, Marvin. Every time I go into families' homes, and Carmen knows this firsthand, you call it Flood City, the Douglas Houses, they close out tickets. It continues to happen. So families are suffering all across the city from this. And they know the system is broken, and they say they're working on it, but it's not happening fast enough.
You know, the truth of the matter is you have to go to where the sauce is. The sauce is in the pipes. You know, if they don't fix these pipes, nothing's going to happen. You can paint over, you can patch it, but it's not going to
And
solve
that's
the problem.
about money, Marvin. That's about money.
Now, this week, the regional director, Lynn Patton, the regional director of HUD,
Yeah.
Lynn Patton,
Yes.
she put something out that seemed rather ominous, and I see a smile comes to your face. Let me relate the tweet. This week, she said, the Monitor already found thousands of examples of no-bid abuse and more. Make no mistake, fraud charges are forthcoming, and she concludes, game over.
Woohoo!
Wow.
You
Very
said
good.
it. You
You
said
know,
it on your
I've
show.
been saying this from day one. The corruption is deep, and the money that has been stolen from the residents could have fixed this problem a long time ago. It's good to see that finally. Yeah, these charges should have been happening. People are getting away with crimes, and I'm talking about literally, they're killing people, Marvin, in these apartments, and no one's going to jail. I don't understand. There's so much money missing. Come on, somebody got to go to jail, right?
How high up you see this going? Is this going to contractors or is this going to city officials? What's your
It's gonna go
expectation?
to a lot of city officials. It's gonna go really up. To tell you the truth, I guess that's why I've been blackballed because I keep saying, "Where's the money?" and why aren't people
You
going
have
to jail?
T-shirts. She has
What do you
T-shirts
think,
that
Monica?
say, well, I mean, first of all, we've broke a lot of news on your show. You've had
Yes.
us consistently on your show. Thank you, Marvin.
Yes.
And we have uncovered the crisis, right? So now we're in the scandal. I think this is the year of the scandal, and we're going to be seeing a lot of, like you said, I guess Lynn Patton said fraud. She calls it fraud, but we're going to be seeing a lot of these stories coming out, and so stay tuned is all
That's
I can
right.
say.
So that's the next phase of this whole
I think
crisis.
so, yeah.
Now, the Federal Monitor said he wanted a plan in place by October 1st. It has not happened. Now I'm being told it may happen as soon as today after the recording of this broadcast.
Right.
And that plan will lay out what?
Well, it's only after the senator wrote a letter. The senator, it always takes the political muscle. For, like with people, the political muscle, and the media. It takes us all coming together and saying we're not going to take this anymore and we need information. Now, NYCHA did say that they did have a report ready September 27th, so we have to say that they did submit one to the Federal Monitor, and he's working on it now, and they are ready. And the mayor has consistently said to me that he has made things better and that it has been getting better little by little.
Well,
So
I see it.
Now, the Federal Monitor
wanna feel
said
it.
nothing. The Federal Monitor, Bart Schwartz, said that nothing is going to change. The sentiment is that NYCHA is doomed without radical change, and you still need that $32 billion,
Yes.
Absolutely.
yeah.
and it's not forthcoming.
It's not forthcoming because they keep stealing again, and this goes way up in the chain. And you know, I hate to be the corporate here, you know, but they have to check out where this money is. They gotta follow the money. The corruption is so deep, it's scary.
Is that going to change? Is that going to make things better?
I really believe so because you know what? If you follow the money, there's more than 32 billion. That's what we need in order to
But
fix
you
the
need
repairs.
immediate change. You didn't have to make sure you have that heat and hot water for this winter.
Well, definitely, and that's where the mayor needs to step up. The mayor needs to do his job. Everyone needs to do their job. Even the monitor. The monitor has to make sure that happens. They're getting paid all this money and nobody's doing their job. Why are you getting paid for? I want to know.
Monica, I have to ask you this. What about the Fulton Chelsea houses? They were talking
Wow.
about such deplorable conditions there. They were
Yeah.
talking about raising them and starting all over again.
Right. Well, a lot of people say it's a victory for the people. They've had town halls. We've covered them. Carmen, you've been there. Ronald, you've been there.
Yes.
All the tenant presidents have spoken and say you
Yes.
can't do things without our input.
Right.
And so what the mayor is now saying is, yes, we're listening, and we're going to have these working groups, which means
Right.
10 weeks of working groups
Yeah.
before they do anything.
You know,
why we have
you know,
Occupy
one of the
NYCHA.
things is why we have Occupy NYCHA, so that all the tenant leaders throughout the city can have a voice and being able to be listened to. They
Right.
do not have tenant leader participation
I
in
think you're
these
gonna
roundtable
break the
conversations.
news.
I'm
here.
getting out of time, but we hear your voices on this program,
Yes.
and we'll have you back again with
Absolutely.
our continuous updates. And thank you, Monitor, for continuing with this story, because Monica makes it happen. Thank you, Carmen
Thank you.
Quinones.
Thank you.
And
Monica.
And
for
that'll do
having
it
us.
for our program for this week. They're giving me the cue. If you have any comments or wish to see the broadcast again, log on to our website at pix11.com/News Closeup. I'm Marvin Scott. Coming up next is Greta Van Susteren and Full Court Press. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.